Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Dan Morain is here with us. Kamala's Way, his brand new book, all about our future vice president. Dan, really nice to meet you. How are you?
Great. Everything's great. Thank you.
So you have been covering politics for a really long time. You've seen many different politicians come through the state of California. Kamala Harris is unlike anybody else, really, when you think about her story. So what has it been like for you to reflect on her path and, put it all into this book here?
She's such an interesting character, and the first story I wrote about her was way back in 1994 when she got an appointment to a state commission. I knew her a little bit better in 2007-8 when Barack Obama was running for president and she was his main surrogate. And then when she ran for attorney general, I was working for the Sacramento Bee as a political affairs columnist. And so I wrote about her a lot, an editorial writer, wrote about her a lot during her time as attorney general. She's such an interesting character. She's very tough, but she's also charismatic. She comes into a room and she just can light it up with her smile. Incredibly engaging. Deliberate, strategic thinker. You're right. I have seen a lot of politicians come and go, some of whom sought to run for president, some who aspire to run for president. She is a different sort. She is very accomplished, very smart, and something to behold.
What's an early example of something that you covered with her that just really resonated with you, that this is a different type of politician, this is a different type of woman who's really entered the arena here?
Well, I saw her in December 2007 and January 2008 at the Iowa caucus. She was out there in the cold and misery of that really cold winter, especially for a California boy like me, where she was trudging around knocking on doors for then Senator and candidate Barack Obama. She was all in for Barack Obama. She worked hard for him in California. She was one of his main surrogates, and that was not an easy position to take. 2007, California was really Hillary Clinton territory. And most of the leading politicians endorsed Hillary Clinton for president in 2007. Not Harris. She was all in, and she was tramping up and down the state, tromping up and down the state, talking on his behalf. So clearly she saw something in Barack Obama that resonated with her, and she was going to fight for that. When she ran for attorney general, she brought a huge amount of energy. She was talking about progressive issues. She was a formidable candidate. She was very good in a debate in 2010. I was one of the questioners at that debate. One of the answers that her opponent gave became a significant ad against him. He sort of stepped in it. We didn't endorse her at the Sacramento Bee. We endorsed her opponent in an editorial that I wrote. I was struck that she was not a thin-skinned person. I wrote critical pieces about her. She still would talk with me as Attorney General. This is not an authorized biography. She did not talk with me for working on this book, nor did people around her. Her family and the Biden-Harris campaign, did not help on this. Nonetheless, I don't think that it was necessarily personal toward me. I don't know, maybe it was. I don't think so. So I don't view her as a thin-skinned politician, unlike some. She's just, she's really a fascinating character.
Well, San Francisco obviously plays a huge role in toughening her and really developing that thick skin. So when you think about that, What was the biggest reason for her succeeding in San Francisco and building this thing out? What is most profound in your opinion?
Well, she certainly had help along the way. Assembly Speaker Willie Brown became Mayor Willie Brown in San Francisco, and he certainly was helpful in her career. But there were lots of others. Her first campaign finance chair, a fellow named Mark Buell, was incredibly helpful, opened many, many doors for her. Some of her early campaign people are still with her, Debbie Meslow, and not names that your listeners or viewers would know, but have been with her from the start and still are part of her circle. It's interesting when I think about Kamala Harris, the one, try to boil it down to one word. That word is transition. She's a transitional person. When she ran for district attorney, one of the things she did was dash over to the San Francisco Public Library, a great library, by the way, and copied the photos of each prior district attorney. And of course, they were all white men. I have nothing against white guys, but she clearly is not, and made that point in a brochure when she ran for California Attorney General. It was the same. She was a transition from what had come before her, which was all white men. But it's more than appearances and gender and ethnicity. She's a transitional person in terms of California politics. When she ran for Attorney General in 2010, California was a very different place from it has become a place where although Republicans can win some races in some parts of the state, it really is a Democratic state, and she is emblematic of that. When she first got into politics, California was could be viewed as very pro law and order. It still is. People hate crime, but your listeners, viewers may recall that in 1994, California passed an especially harsh version of the three-strike sentencing law. By the time she was California Attorney General in 2012, Californians rolled back that law. So politics in California have changed, and she's been part of that transition.
Another interesting part too is that she's this principled woman, and you mentioned the whole thing with law and order. I mean, obviously the death penalty was something that she had to really confront when it came to California's view on that, and specifically there was a police killer at the time. So when you reflected on that time in her career, what stood out to you just about the way that she stood her ground?
Yeah. So think about this. I mean, it was just 18 years ago. 18 years ago, almost to the day, when she was sworn in as San Francisco district attorney. It's been quite a ride in these past 18 years. So January of 2003, she's sworn in as, January 2004, she's sworn in as San Francisco district attorney. And then in April, there's a horrible police shooting. Two officers stopped two guys on the street, and one of them had a semi-automatic rifle, and he turned and fired on and killed Isaac Espinosa, who by all accounts was a great cop, family man. He was soon to have a wedding anniversary. Anyway, so he was murdered. She in California at the time, still it's the laws on the books. Killing a police officer is a crime for which you could be sentenced to death. She said 3 days after the murder that she wasn't going to bring a death penalty case against him. She would seek life in prison, but not the death penalty. And there was an incredible blowback. I mean, then the senior senator from California, former mayor of San Francisco, Dianne Feinstein, all but denounced her at the officer's funeral a few days later. As she was sitting in the front pew of this huge cathedral in San Francisco, filled with police officers. Police officers stood and applauded Dianne Feinstein remarks, and there was Kamala Harris. For months thereafter, police officers shunned her. She'd walk into the Hall of Justice, and if they saw her, they would turn their backs on her. So she stood her ground on that. She never sought the death penalty. It was not a surprise. That was her campaign. That was part of her platform running for district attorney, that she opposed the death penalty. When she became attorney general, when she ran for attorney general, she promised that she would enforce the law, that she was opposed to the death penalty. So she would carry it out if it got to that point. It never got to that point during her tenure. California hasn't executed anybody since 2006 and isn't going to anytime soon. There were 3 ballot measures during her time as California Attorney General, 2 that would have abolished the death penalty and 1 that sought to speed it up. The one to speed it up passed, not by a huge margin, but it passed. The 2 to end the death penalty, to abolish capital punishment, failed, not by a large margin. She didn't take positions on either of those. I suppose you could argue, she did, that this was a position that if she took a stand on these measures either way, that it would influence her deputies as they're arguing cases before the appellate courts, as the California Supreme Court and federal courts. So she felt it inappropriate. That was her argument, to take stands on those 3 measures. Nonetheless, perhaps voters could have benefited from the wisdom of the state's top cop, as they're called, on those measures. She didn't take a stand. That was her prerogative, and she stuck to it.
She's had such an interesting journey, and to fast forward to this week, I mean, she's been the first before, but to be the first woman, especially a woman of color, to be a vice president is historic in so many different ways. So what is most intriguing to you about Kamala Harris as the next vice president of the United States?
Well, she's formidable. She's really smart. Nobody would pick, Joe Biden would not have picked Kamala Harris to shove her off in a corner like some potted plant. I mean, this is a woman who is can be very strong, is very strong, and she's going to be consequential in the Senate, which is split 50-50. She'll have an opportunity to cast votes on perhaps nominees to the federal bench, perhaps some bills. We'll have to see how all that plays out. But she has the potential in a 50-50 Senate to cast a tie-breaking vote, and won't that be extraordinary? Symbolism aside, she will be. Her success depends on President Biden's success, and so she needs to be the best possible vice president she can be. That means giving him her best advice, being loyal to him publicly, speaking her mind privately, and I'm sure she will do that. I'll just be shocked if we ever see daylight between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden on any significant policy issue publicly. Privately is another question. I think she'll speak her mind, and she'll help shape policy as it relates to immigration, a huge issue in California and across the nation, but especially huge in California. She was elected to the Senate promising that she would focus on immigration. Of course, their first job has to be to corral the horrible pandemic. Once everything flows from that. Once they are able to deal with the crisis. I do think immigration is going to be one of the top issues. She'll help shape policy as it relates to the justice system as well. I would guess, given her background, that she'll be influential on judicial nominees and especially in California, and on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers the Western states. So she will be a consequential vice president. She will be someone who really America and the world will get to know, but she's going to follow Joe Biden's lead. That's her job.
Yeah, something tells me she'll be in the mix on all these different things. Dan, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. And best of luck with everything going forward, all right?
Good. Thanks so much.